is the World Phonotactics Database. And so what you want to do when you get to this home page to launch the database and actually be able to play around with it is click right here on this Launch Database button, which will then spawn a new tab typically. And it will apparently complain that it can't load Google Maps correctly, and okay, because what we're really interested in is this little window right here, which is the main window, which allows you to interact with the database. And so, for example, if you want to find out which languages have certain features, under the Features tab, you hit the plus, and then you can see a listing here of all these different features. So these are phonotactic ones, which we haven't really talked about so much. But for example, if you're just interested in sounds like consonants and vowels and stops, you can see here under segments, you have total consonants, tonal vowels. We have, for example, plosives, which is the name for stops, and all manner of plosives, right? We have nasals, and so on, right? So there, you can sort of scroll through here to see which features of interest, and let's just look, say, at total consonants. And you can see here that it begins by telling you what the range is in the database. So it looks like if you have a minimum of 0 and a maximum of 106, first of all, how many is that? You can see them appear on the map back here, but what you're interested in is what's the total number, and the answer is there are about 3,800 or so in the database that we know something about their consonants. And so let's maybe narrow that down, and let's say we're really interested in those languages that have like a lot of consonants. So let's say they have a minimum of, say, 70 consonants. So they have at least 70 or more consonants, up to 106 consonants. How many is that? And you can see that all these numbers kind of disappear because this is actually many, many fewer languages. In fact, it turns out there are only 8 that have at least 70, so 70 up to 106 consonants. And if you're curious about like which ones those are, you can click this little arrow to list them out, and you can see what languages they are. They all seem to be African languages, actually. And you can see what social region, what language family, and so on. And so let's suppose that you're like, well, that's really great, but I'm not really interested in consonants anymore. Maybe I want to go look at, scroll down to some of these down here. Let's do liquids. Right, so this one is a question mark, any liquids, because that's just a yes or no question. So how many languages have versus do not have liquid sounds? Like in English, this would be L and R. So you do that little, I guess, circular sign there to get it to load. And let's see. So it looks like we've got it broken down into the ones that do have liquids, which is most of them, 3,600 of them, versus the ones that don't, which is 159, right? And you can do the same thing if you wanted to see them listed out. You could actually click on this arrow, but because there are so many, we're not going to do that right now. But we are going to do is what happens if maybe you're interested in a combination of features. So you have maybe any liquids, yes or no, and you maybe want to go back to those African languages that we found that had 70 or more consonants. So if you do that, you can actually click that plus again to get a second feature listing. So let's go back here to total consonants, and let's do this minimum of 70, so between 70 inclusive to 106 inclusive. And you just want to know, okay, so how many of those languages that had 70 to 106 consonants had liquids or didn't have liquids, just like what was the breakdown. So now you have both of these features together. You hit your little circular thing to tell you, reload those from the database, and here we are. So we have 2 of those African languages that had a whole bunch of consonants have liquids. They have the plus value, and 6 of them do not have any liquids. So let's look, say, at the 2 that have liquids, and it turns out these ones which I will not pronounce, but these are in different parts of Africa. They actually come from different language families, right? And then if you want to look at the 6 that don't have any liquid sounds but still have a whole ton of consonants, then you can see that they again come from a variety of, variety of language families, mostly the Koa one, and then one from the 2, right? So this is really how to use this database. And again, use that arrow to navigate forward and backward on the legends, and use this to navigate your features. And you can add even more combinations, if you wanted to find out about some of those other features here. Just for fun, let's do one more. How about how many of them have nasal stops, right? So these are nasal sounds like and and in English. So what kind of breakdown do we get there? And now we have, it turns out, actually, all of these languages, all of them have nasal stops. So in fact, all 8 of them, you can see that the only 2 values that show up are with nasal stops plus, because that covers the entirety of the 8 languages. But what if we get rid of, say, total consonants, and we're just interested in the breakdown between languages that have liquids and nasal stops? Let's just have a quick look at that. Now we should get 4 values. So nasal stops plus, nasal stops minus, liquids plus, liquids minus, and all of those different 4 combinations. And we can see the breakdown in the database of the languages that have these different featural properties.